SB 79, which is a new law. It hasn't passed yet, but it's in the process in California that would allow building in residential neighborhoods. It's up to 6-story buildings if they're close to bus stops and places of transit.
Right.
Can you tell us what's happening with this law?
Right now, SB 79 is a new bill going through the state legislature. It's already gone through the California Senate. The Senate approved it, barely passed through the Senate by one vote. It's now moved into the Assembly, and once they return from recess next week, they'll be going through committee meetings on SB 79, and then the Assembly will have a full floor vote on that, and if the Assembly passes it, then it will go back to Senate one more time for a final reconciliation vote, and if everything passes there, it will go to the governor for signature. But we are certainly hoping that it does not pass. We're fighting very hard to see SB 79 stop because we believe it's a huge impact and negative impact on R1 communities.
How will it impact you guys?
Most people know an R1 zone neighborhood has traditionally been one residential unit per lot. And that's been the way it's been ever since there's been cities. And cities were developed with different types of zoning, and R1 zoning was kind of considered the zoning where people had more space, it was less dense, more suburban feel. And so R1 zoning has now become under attack from various groups, and the state has taken up the cause of trying to basically eliminate R1 zoning and densify R1 communities by different laws that increase the ability to have more than one residential unit on a lot. Other laws, I guess, B9, various ADU laws, and now R1 zone no longer means one household unit on a lot. It could mean potentially up to 3 or even 6, depending on what laws might be applied. That densification is upsetting to a lot of people who bought into an R1 zone neighborhood because they wanted that suburban feel of lower density, quieter, calmer neighborhoods, and density changes that feel. And the more we densify the R1 zone neighborhoods, the character of those neighborhoods will change and change permanently. And obviously people who want to live in an R1 zone neighborhood are upset about that. And R1 zoning is probably the most common zoning for housing throughout the whole state of California.
How would this SB 79 impact?
Well, SB 79, it will allow extreme densification of existing lots that might only have one home on it today to build up to 6-story multifamily property without any change in zoning, without any discussion by the residents or the councils in those cities. It would all be done ministerially, which means by right. The developer comes in, submits their plan to the planning department of the city. The city is required by the law to approve that within 60 days. And your neighbor next could sell their house and someone could tear down that property next to you and start building a 6-story apartment building, and you wouldn't even know about it, and you wouldn't have any ability to say anything about it, complain about it. And these types of construction projects then would be allowed within a half a mile of high volume transit, buses, train systems, and that type of thing. So if you look at some of the main streets through some of our larger cities in our state, that's a very common occurrence to have high volume bus service, and more we're seeing transit through trains being put into our cities. And so anytime there's anything within a half a mile, which that's a pretty big radius if you look at a half a mile from around a bus stop, anything in that half a mile radius could essentially be converted to 6-story projects by right, with no discussion from the community to say we oppose this.
You've been at a city council for many years.
Yep.
Based on what you're seeing, there's a number of laws that are passed. This is kind of the newest one, but there's a lot of different laws with the ADUs and SB 9. What do you think your community that you were leading would look like in a decade from now?
Well, I'm fearful for what it would look like because our community, I'm from Torrance, and Torrance has always been a suburban community outside of downtown Los Angeles. And so people who wanted to live in a more serene, quiet community would tend to move to the suburbs. And a lot of people, that's their dream, is to move out to the suburbs and have a nice, quiet community to live in, as opposed to the hustle and bustle of a downtown Los Angeles or other high density areas. And so the California dream was to have that nice little home out with a yard, a white picket fence. And all of a sudden, California must be thinking, that's no longer the dream we want to see people have. And so they're trying to take that dream away from people and say, well, now we want to push density into those communities where we could put density in other places. In fact, there are many rules that are forcing cities to build housing in various areas of our communities that do give the city the ability to dictate where that will be. And that's under the regional housing needs assessment allotments that cities are given. And the good part about that is the cities can choose where, via their housing element, they can choose where to build higher density housing. And these laws that I'm talking about, specifically SB 79, don't follow into that housing element that cities are able to plan for. It just pushes this density into residential neighborhoods. And cities have the right to do that anyway. But now the state is mandating it and saying, we don't have a choice, it's done ministerially, there's no public discussion. And many of us believe that there still should be a choice of what type of living you want to have. That's what people wanted. And people were willing to pay good money to live in those communities. What was promised to us when we bought into that R1 zone is now being taken away. It's like, wait a minute, I thought when I bought into this R1 zone community, I would have the protection that this community would stay in that look and feel of an R1 zone community that we all had envisioned. But apparently now the state is changing what we're going to see. We have a section of our neighborhood that has views. It's on a hillside. And so people have ocean and city views. And people traditionally have said, yeah, I would like to have a view, and I'm willing to pay substantially more to live in a property that has a view. And so we as a city and other cities have done similar things where we've enacted laws about development in those areas that those views will be protected, so that if a person buys a property with a view, that they would expect to have that view forever, and that someone will not come up and build a second-story building in front of their view and block their view. And so we have had this in place for many, 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 many years, decades. And it's worked out really, really well, where the people feel comfortable that, oh, I bought my house here, I paid a whole lot extra to have a view, which should be allowed. It shouldn't be illegal. If I want to buy a house with a view and I have the money and the resources to buy it, I should be able to buy it. But now with these new ADU laws and other laws that are coming into play, it's taken our laws, thrown them out the window, and allowing people to build a two-story unit without any review by the community, without any regard to blocking someone's view, even though we've instituted laws to protect those views. And the state laws override our local laws. And the traffic's already bad enough as it is, and with all these new bodies in the communities, those cars have to go someplace.